All right, we are now recording. Welcome to this webinar from TENS, the Episcopal Network for Stewardship. This is one of the webinars we are offering this year to all of our members to help get you ready for your fundraising, whatever shape that will take this year. If you are gathered in person, if you're still gathered virtually, if you're doing hybrid worship, we have a plan for you and ways to help you make sure that you are prepared and ready to go with this year's campaign materials. Last year, around this time, we did Virtual Stewardship 101, which was, for many of us in the Episcopal Church, our first time that we really had to get serious about creating online giving platforms and do the research on portals. By now, a year into the pandemic, we are all experts on how to raise money online, but we've learned a lot in the last year as well. So I'm going to be sharing some tips that have come through the last year as we have perfected and learned from each other and the ongoing social distancing that virtual church has given us the opportunity to do. So I'm really excited to offer this, and I look forward to helping you all create your best campaigns this year. Today, I hope that we will learn a few things together. I hope that we will talk a little bit about these relationships that we've been creating and strengthening virtually all year long. I hope that we will look at the best practices that have emerged since the beginning of 2020 and through 2021 on virtual giving, virtual offering plates, online donation forms, all of that. We're going to talk a little bit about using your social media, and we're going to talk a lot about making certain that your donors and your members know what your mission is, what they are giving their money for, so that you can create great campaigns. We're going to talk a little bit about the offertory and the very many ways that you all have found throughout the pandemic to emphasize this or highlight this beautiful moment in our Episcopal liturgy and create ways to still find that sacred place within our virtual worship to ensure that we do give gratitude and respect and honor to all the gifts that we bring to church and lay on the altar, whether that altar is virtual or whether that is happening in person. And finally, we will give an updated list of the best offering plates and giving platforms that came through the pandemic. Some of them really rose to the top and found new ways to emphasize online giving and created less expensive ways to engage our donors. And so we want to promote those and highlight them. There have been a few that have really risen to the top. Those are our learning objectives today. And so I'm going to get started and go through it, and I'll stop in a few slides and read off any questions. So do please use the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen to type questions in as you have them, and then I will come around and read them. It's all about relationship. Stewardship is relationship, and we use the word stewardship in the Episcopal Church to encompass so many things. We talk about our fundraising, we talk about our resources, we talk about our time, talent, and treasure. And yes, all of those things are about stewardship. And also, our greatest resource is each other. It's our relationships. It's the strengthening of our bond. It's the love that we share together. It's the gratitude and generosity that we show each other in daily life and in church life. It's all about relationship. So as we look for our messaging and our connection with our online or our in-person fundraising this year, please remember that at the essence, this is about communicating and about strengthening our relationships. Yes, it's also about raising money for our ministry, and that's important. But the love and the relationships that we share and strengthen during our campaigns are even more important to us, I think. Here are a few things that we've learned recently about online giving. I present these because there are still some vestry members, and there are still some people, our church administrators perhaps, and some treasurers even, who haven't yet fully embraced online giving. It does come with some costs, and it comes with some work. We know those things to be true. It also comes with an enormous potential to increase the ways that people can participate in your fundraising and in your mission and ministry. So let's just assume that fundraising online has some costs to it. They are modern costs of doing business for church. I know because in my own faith community, our treasurer and finance committee held off for a long time on implementing virtual fundraising, an online button or a way for people to give money online, because they come with transaction costs, because those are often passed on to the church. And so it didn't make sense always to spend money to get money. But in fact, we learned that when we do offer more varieties of ways that people can make their gifts, that in fact, they rise to the occasion and they make those platforms worth the cost and worth the time that it takes to implement them. In 2019, the Lake Institute did a study on faith and giving. The Lake Institute, if you don't know them, they come through the Lilly School of Philanthropy in Indiana, and they are a wonderful ecumenical group that really digs deep into issues of money and meaning. They released a study, pretty comprehensive, that looked at all faith communities and gave us a lot of great statistics on online giving. It's not just our millennials and our Gen Z folks who give online. People who are 40 to 59, the Gen Xers among us, we're the largest group of online donors. We have come through, I say we because I'm a part of it, we have come through that digital generation of learning how to do these tools in Web 1.0 and through Amazon purchases, and finally when all of the nonprofits went online and found ways to connect. So it's not just our youngest generations who are familiar with this. And our millennials are the most generous generation alive today. 97% of them have made a gift to charity. 97%. And they're young. They're early in their careers. They're early in their money making. They're early in learning about how to connect with the world. And 97% of them have already established a discipline, a habit, a practice of making gifts to charities, and that includes churches. So when we say, well, if we, it's just the young people who make gifts online, we're really discounting the fact that our young folks are very generous. They may not have as much to give as our older generations who have spent more time in the workforce, but they absolutely have the spirit of generosity. So let's find ways to include everyone in that. Faith-based giving has grown in the online segment dramatically in the last couple of years, almost 10%. So that means this is before the pandemic, right? So since the pandemic, it's exploded even more. But this is just to remind us that online giving in faith communities is trending up. More and more of our congregations are making that available. So we've talked a little bit about how generous the millennials and Gen Z are, and we've talked about Gen X. But let's remember our boomers and our matures. 59% of donors 66 and above have made gifts online. This is to say that they are comfortable. Many of our donors in that age group are comfortable making gifts online, comfortable with the credit card process or the debit card process. Often we say, well, we're missing out on our older generations if we keep focusing on online giving. And I'm here to tell you that many of them already know how to do this and are ready to do it. And if you ask, they will respond. That's not to say, and please don't hear in any of what I'm saying today, that we should abandon checks and envelopes and collection plates. I'm just saying that we must increase the ways that people can make gifts to their church online. You're leaving money on the table if you don't accept online ways for people to make gifts. Since last year, we have seen amazing creativity and a real expansion of how we ask for engagement online. Engagement, not just in terms of making gifts online, but in terms of sharing information, participating in the life of community, and in all the things that we have done virtually to strengthen our relationships and to help each other and to help our congregations. So I'm going to go over a few of them with you. Social media. So a few years ago, almost every congregation developed perhaps a Facebook page, maybe an Instagram, maybe a Google photo album, or other ways to share information and collect information. Those are all great. And I hope that many of our congregations who have not yet developed at least a Facebook page will consider doing it. But then there's the thing that we have to provide content for it. We have to maintain it, and we have to keep it up, which is a difficult thing because there are so many other things in our churches that we do. Newsletters and bulletins that have to get out. And we often don't think about that Facebook page that has information from last Christmas still posted at the top of it. So please use your social media and know that it's a great way to connect and get your message out. Look at all of our channels. So we're going to talk today a little bit about your online website, your website for giving, the portal that you use for your pledge campaign, how to improve that, how to look at it. Today is an overview. Later in the summer, we're going to go into even more detail. We have webinars every month this year. We're going to go into even more detail later this summer on creating the perfect website and talking about your online giving portals. But today we'll start with an overview. And then of course we'll talk about the always good strategies, best practices for fundraising and how we can increase the possibilities of donations in our congregations. So let's start by looking at some social media tools. Video campaigns they require some work and they require some editing and some skill. The thing is that your younger people, perhaps your children or grandchildren, perhaps the younger people in your congregation, they know how to make a video and they know how to make them viral and they know how to make them fun. Last year, when we were deep in the pandemic, the dancing priest at St. Anne's in the Diocese of South Carolina did this amazing video and it went crazy viral. Do you see how many people viewed it? And I added this slide a few weeks ago. There have been even more. So almost 1.6 million people looked at this video and shared it and found out about St. Anne's Church, right? And so this is an amazing thing. If you can create a tool and a video that gets your message out, this shows the fun side of this congregation and what they do. and somebody willing to like sing a funny song and put on a show, it really drives people to say, well, what's going on here? And if you can get people in through a viral video, then you can share your message. Well, so this is what St. Anne's does. This is how we interact. This is why we are a community. This is why your participation in it matters. So use viral videos to increase traffic to your website or your social media page. You can see how much it will do that. 1.6 million views, that's a lot. Participate in trends. Because the rest of our culture is doing it, these are familiar things and they are emphasized in other people's ad campaigns and social media campaigns, things like Giving Tuesday. Giving Tuesday follows Black Friday and Cyber Monday, all those things that we put around the Thanksgiving holiday. Giving Tuesday is a way to say, make your year-end gift to your favorite charity. Many nonprofits are doing campaigns around this time of year, and they use Giving Tuesday as a way to emphasize their message and get their donors. And they want to capture donations on that day because it means that their donor base are paying attention. Well, so it's on the front page of newspapers. It's the lead story in a lot of local newscasts. Giving Tuesday, who were the stars in your town, right? So why not participate in a trend like that for your church? What do you have to lose? And it's something you can do with your social media, with your newsletter. Try to get 100% participation from your members on Giving Tuesday, and they don't have to give a lot. $5 will do it, right? It's just a way to get your message out there and raise some money for your mission. Talk about the things you do, your outreach, right? So this is all coming around the Thanksgiving holiday, for example, and Giving Tuesday. So make it a message about how you give back to the community or how you take the gratitude for everything that you've been given and share that message with the world. There's no reason that you can't try this too. And then there's crowdfunding. This is a little bit of a different kind of program, and churches are slow to adopt it. It can be used for specialized ministries. Say you're trying to fund your mission trip to paint houses or build schools or whatever you're doing. A GoFundMe or a Facebook event or some other sort of crowdfunding where you get your message out and you see a ticker and donations go up. These are great ways to do special event fundraising and get your message out and find people. So you might be able to share your GoFundMe for your youth work with your friends and neighbors or your coworkers in a way that you could never say, will you make a donation to my church? They don't go there maybe, and that would be awkward, but they can participate in some mission or some outreach. And then that gets them in the habit of learning what you do. All of this is to say social media is about connecting. It's about sharing messages with each other. And let's take it back from some of the political messaging that we get and some of the newsworthy fighting that happens on social media, and take it back for beautiful, wonderful, relational purposes. Use it to connect to your friends and family and tell them why your church matters to you and why they can help and participate in it. Your website is a really important tool. No, it's not as important as opening your doors or filling up your parking lot or making your sign visible to everyone. But your website is your virtual home. It's the way people find your church if they're new to town or if they're looking for information about Episcopal churches. Your website replaces the yellow pages in ways that we now look for a church community. It's also where our members can go when they can't find the most recent copy of the newsletter, and they know that there's some information and they remember seeing it, but they hope that it's posted on the website. Make your website relevant. Keep it up to date. Make it easy. Make it approachable. And please, please do your fundraising on your website as well. Your church should have a give button or a donate button or a participate button, something on your website that helps people know how to engage, how to find information, and how to make a gift. This is important for visitors. It's also important for your members. Your online giving website should be easy to find. It should be in your main navigation or in a special colored button, something that grabs attention. And it should have minimal clicks to get to the goal, which is to submit a donation. Often, especially in church websites, we want to ask a lot of other information because we're relational people, right? We want to know where you're from, and we want to know things you might also want to participate in. Do you want to, and all of those questions are good. And the goal of an online donation website is to give people a way to make their pledge, to submit their stewardship form, for example, or to make a gift. You can then follow on with more questions to ask people, well, would you like to participate in these ministries? Or how else would you like to interact? Those can be follow-on things, but if we miss the opportunity for people to make an easy gift, we spend time taking them through too many menus and too many clicks. We abandon people each time we invite them into a new screen. Your online giving form, we have some tips, and I've put it here in a document that you can go on our website and download. Our resource library is full of great tips and tools, and one of them is our best practices for how to create your online donation website and giving page. Lots of examples of churches that are doing it well, some critiques of churches that could be doing it better, and lots of information on how you can shape up your website and be ready for your congregation to participate. Recurring donations is another really important part of our fundraising online. It's usually an option on a donation form. You can toggle it or click it on, and you can say, make my donation recurring. And you can say, is this every week? Is it every 2 weeks? Is it every month? Is it every quarter? Whatever your frequency is and however you want people to engage, you can find a way so that it just zips into your account from theirs on a schedule that makes sense for everyone. Recurring donations are a beautiful thing in church fundraising because it takes the place of those envelopes that we used to all get when we filled out a pledge form and had our envelope number. And it takes the place of that. When we can't be in church on a Sunday, our gift still manages to make its way into the church. This is really important. Finally, I want to talk a little bit about our text to give campaigns. So we have seen amazing potential in how congregations can raise money through their phone, through your phone, right? By sending text messages, by involving people in a quick way to access your donation form through their phone and make a gift to the church. It is a punchy, new, modern way that people are making gifts. And we all, many of us, I should say, have a smartphone and carry it with us, where we don't always carry cash or checks. We often carry our phone and can make a donation. 2020 saw a really dramatic increase in church text to give campaigns. We saw text being used to communicate that the church was open or closed or socially distanced. We saw text campaigns being used like a phone tree to stay in touch with each other and get members connected to each other about ministries or possibilities, or when there was news to share about the things that we want to talk about in our congregations, like if there was a prayer request, or if there was a meal request, or if there was a need. We found that text messages were a great way for congregations to get those messages out to our members. So 98% of text messages are opened within 3 minutes of their receipt. So this says, I might ignore your email. I might not look at a printed newsletter. I might only look at emails late at night, or if I look at it on my phone and I open it up and then it becomes unread and I forget to go back to it later. These are all things that happen with a lot of the messaging that we are used to using in churches, but people look at text messages. Also, when they are asked to make a gift via text and they're given a link that they can use their smartphone to link to a donation page, the average gift size, now this is not just church, but this is talking about nonprofits in general. The average text gift size is $107. The average gift size for people writing checks to a nonprofit or a church is $35. This is a dramatic increase in what someone is willing to do, because you can make your text pitch timely, urgent, very localized. It's about what's happening today, now. It's not an email campaign you had to design and implement, or a direct mail campaign that took weeks from the time you wrote the letter till it arrives in somebody's mailbox and goes through a process. Text messages are fast. How can you use your phone to make a donation? One of them is by implementing a phone tree type system through your church directory, and sending out text messages with direct links to where people can make gifts. The other is to use what's called a QR code, and I bet a lot of you have used them before. QR codes, they look like a square barcode. People use them now to order in a restaurant. Your whole menu will appear on your phone and you can select what you want and then it will come to you. It's a whole new way of interacting in restaurants these days. Well, it works for church giving too. So you can print that QR code, for example, in your bulletin, or you can put it on a card in your donation, in your pew rack, right? And so people can take that and they can hold their phone's camera up to it. They can snap a picture of it and it opens up a web page and they can make their gift that way. These are all ways that technology can be used to make gifts in church. You can also use your text not just for raising money, but in all the other ways that churches need to connect. And they are really great ways to get out an urgent prayer request, seek volunteers, even while it's happening, right? So we're doing cleanup day and we still need 5 more people to show up who can come on over and help us, right? Text messages get answered. I'm going to pull up and I'm going to read some questions that may have come in before we move on to other virtual giving tools. I see one question's come into the Q&A. Betty writes, with text to give requests or even text for church info, is there any research on how many is too many for people to receive in a week or a month? There is research, and I will send it to you. I have an article to send when I send out the minutes or the notes from today's webinar. You can get away with 1 or 2 a week. Any more than that, and it becomes too much. You don't want people to say, you know, why is the church texting me every day? It becomes too much to do. Also, you probably know this, but and when you get an email that is sent to you from a system like Constant Contact or something like that, maybe your church uses one of those, you set the time of day and the day of the week that it goes out. And there are internet rules, best practices for when people are most likely to open up an email or read it. As I said before, sometimes, you know, if you get it during commute time, if it drops, that's a terrible time to send an email because people are driving. They're not going to look at it. So, for example, your text messages also need to follow a general rule. Don't send them during dinner hour, for example. Take a look at them either sort of after the dinner hour. People are likely to respond and look at text messages, or, you know, sort of early in the day when you might need it. Don't send it in the middle of the day when people are using their phone to connect to work or to school or to all the other things that they do. So the beginning and the end of the day are good times to send text messages. Thanks for your question, Betty. Sharon asks, how can we ensure security of financial information transmitted digitally? Great question. So when you use your online giving portal or your phone to make a donation, it links to a secure website. All websites that handle, I should say, all reputable websites that handle financial transactions are usually doubly or triply encrypted. When you notice a website has an HTTPS, and then it goes on, S means secure, right? And so that is what e-commerce or other things that are requiring credit card or debit card transactions will use. If you use a service like Tithely or PayPal or Facebook donations to make your gift, those are secure websites. Nothing is completely invulnerable to attack. If there's a way in, if there's a will, there's a way. But secure websites really make it difficult to do that. And also, this is of little comfort if it happens to you, but credit card companies and banks will investigate things that seem like fraud and usually side in a reasonable amount of time with the consumer if you can demonstrate that it was fraud that happened. So really, more and more online giving is very secure. It is in a credit card company's best interest to make the process as safe and secure as possible because they want to increase the number of times that people use it. St. Paul's Episcopal Church says, don't people have to opt in to receive texts? That it all depends on your system and how you want to use it. There are church software systems for church directories, for example, where you can put your phone number in and then the church can send out a blanket text message. And then with it, there's a little tag at the end that says to stop receiving this text, write stop and send it back. So that's the way that people opt out. You can offer a first level of opt-in, but you're not required by law or by ethics to do so. What you are required to do is to give them a way out if they don't want to receive. And it's the same with your online newsletter, right? They can always say, unsubscribe me from this list, and they have that option of doing that, and then you honor that. So it depends on how you set it up, but people will tell you that they don't want to receive your texts or your emails if that's what's going on. I see another question. Would the church be liable for a PHI security breach, credit card numbers, addresses, names? That all goes back to the vendor that you use to access your online giving. So if you're using Tithely or Vanco or PayPal and there's a breach, it happens at that site, right? So the church never gets my credit card information. The place that I sent my donation, the portal that processed it, they have my credit card. They send my money to the church and tell the church how to get in touch with me, my phone number, my contact address, my email address, as I've provided them. The church itself doesn't get my credit card transaction. They just get the results of it. This makes it safe for the church, because then a church security, which may not be as robust as a credit card processing plant, the church doesn't have to worry about credit card numbers getting out in some way. So the vendor or your platform for accepting your online donation, they bear the risk and the responsibility to cover any liability should there be a breach. These are great questions, and all of them help us get more and more comfortable with making gifts online. There are millions of online transactions that happen every day, and a majority of them are legitimate, safe, and secure. Yes, there are obvious places of fraud happening, and we, as people who are asking people to engage with us, need to be better about informing people about what we call the phishing scams, right? When you see one of those emails that says, you know, help, I'm in a meeting and I need you to send me a gift card right now because I forgot someone's birthday. I was on a Zoom with my bishop last week when I got an email from my bishop saying that he desperately needed me to send him $150 in iTunes gift cards because he'd forgotten someone's birthday and it was really important. I said, did you send this, Bishop Mark? He said, I did not. So this happens. It happens all the time, and we get these messages. I've seen, for example, the Diocese of Maine. I just saw their website the other day, and it's front and center. We will never send an email from the bishop asking for this kind of thing. So we have some responsibility as the institution to say there are some bad actors out there, and how can we help you distinguish between a legitimate request that we will give you and a fake one, and be responsible for that. But to answer the final question, yes, it's the vendor's responsibility if there's a breach to take care of the problem. Thanks for your great questions on this. All right, I'm going to keep moving and we'll have some more Q&A in a little bit. Following on text giving, there's mobile giving. What's the difference between text and mobile giving? Text is, you get a text message, it has a link in it, it sends you to a portal to make your gift. Mobile giving, is where you have downloaded an application from your App Store or your Google Play or wherever you get your apps. You have downloaded something so that you can interface with from your phone to whatever it is that you're trying to do, right? So Venmo is one way that people share money with each other. There are a couple of others like PushPay and Zelle and Cash App. They're very familiar, and I use Venmo, for example, with my friends when we go out to dinner and there's one check and we forgot to say separate checks, and one person puts it on their card, and then right there at the table, I can Venmo my friend my portion, and they have instant access to the money. Everything's good. It happened. It was all secure. For a while, Venmo was available in churches and for nonprofits. And a lot of churches took the opportunity to create Venmo accounts and start collecting money. My own congregation here in San Francisco has an active Venmo account. People can make a gift through Venmo and the money goes right into our church account. But in January of last year, when PayPal acquired Venmo, they stopped the nonprofit platform. It's still being used if you had implemented it before 2020, but at some point it will go away, and there are no new applications for nonprofits or churches. So if you're a church that has Venmo, use it and enjoy it. It's going to go away at some point, but right now you can still use it. There is a great one. I know we have some members from Canada on our call today. You can use Interac, which is a great way to e-transfer money. It's another app, and it works just really in Canada. It works between people, and a lot of congregations are using it in a way that Venmo used to be used. It does cost some money. Each transaction, as you see, costs about $1. And that's for you to decide if that's a good amount or not a good amount to spend, but it's out there. I see we have some questions on mobile giving, and I'm going to open up our Q&A again. Yes, Kathy, thank you for sharing that painful story. I know that that was hard, and it is hard when our bishop, Kathy writes that her bishop, not her bishop, wrote her an email and asked her for money, and got quite a bit of it as a result. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. St. Paul's has their hand up. And so let's see, I'm going to see if I can allow you to talk. Nope, your hand is down now. Okay. Sorry about that. Thank you. Good Shepherd in Punta Gorda asks, if the transaction travels between the giver and the third party, then the third party to the church, how does the church keep track of the giver? Great question. So the third party, the vendor portal, asks for legal information, your name, your billing address, and usually your phone number and an email address, because it's happening online. So every one of those will at least have a legal name, a legal billing address, and a verifiable email address, sometimes the phone. Those three pieces of information, name, contact address, and email address, get shipped to the final place, the church, along with the money. So there's a report that can be downloaded as frequently as you download reports, which will say you received this many transactions. Here's all the data that accompanies them. Here's the date that the gift was made and the amount. So you can track it back into your system and do that. All of the platforms that we'll be talking about today have really easy reporting that works with QuickBooks or FileMaker Pro or some of the other commonly available software systems that your treasurer or church administrator might use to keep track of your pledges and your books. And so those reports can just come from, for example, PayPal and go right into QuickBooks. And they make all of that, make all of those connections for you. That's a great question. So thank you for asking it, because it's really important that we know that we can get access to the donor information once they've given it. Your virtual pledge form is your way to ask for all the information that you think you're going to need for people to make a gift. The way your virtual pledge form usually works is that your third party gives you the ability to customize a form. They might let you put your logo on it, maybe even change the colors to match what your church looks like or your church website would look like. But they give you some options to customize it and to customize the information you're seeking. My recommendation, Ten's recommendation, is that you have the simplest form possible. Ask really just the basic questions like name, family name, amount of the gift, how to contact them, and some other essential pieces of information, but don't overburden them with too much information in the form. More questions leads to people dropping out of the process. Aim for as few clicks as possible. So that means that when somebody goes to your website, they see, here's how to make a gift. If they then have to go to another web page that describes all the giving ways, and then yet another click in order to fill out the form, and that, you know, so like every click, you lose people in a process. So if you can get from your homepage to the donation form to a submit button in 3 clicks, you're doing really well. The more clicks, the more screens people have to go through, the more dedicated and interested they really have to be to make that gift for you. But you'll lose some people along the way. Do ask for recurring gifts. As I said before, the power of a recurring gift is that it will keep coming, right? And so my gifts to my church, I selected that option, and I actually forget that it's going to come out of my bank account. It's timed with my payday, and so it just kind of zips into my account and zips out. And then I get a little message from the church saying, thank you for your donation. I was, yay, it happened again. So it's a really great way to have people pay regularly. It also avoids, and this is a wonderful thing for church treasurers and administrators to think about, it avoids that summer slump when people aren't in churches typically, and they're vacationing and they're traveling, or they're busy with all the things that our kids have to do and all that. So the summer slump is avoided because if people have recurring donations, it's just coming out on a regular basis. It's great for church. Also, a thing to put on your pledge form is asking about matching gifts. Many corporations use matching gifts as a benefit to their employees. Some of them have restrictions on giving to religious institutions, but many of them do not. And so you should ask, does your company match your gift? That's a 2-for-1. This is great. So your gift will be matched either in its entirety or perhaps up to a certain amount. It differs from one employer to another, but please do ask for a matching gift. Finally, if you want people to use the pledge form to indicate that there is, maybe they want to visit from the clergy or there's some other thing to do, you can have a little checkbox that says put in your email address to get a phone call, or I guess you wouldn't put in your email address to get a phone call, but tell us if you want more information and we'll get in touch with you. It's a way to do that rather than asking for all that information before they hit submit. The more things you ask before submit, the less likely you are to get everyone to fill out your form. I'm gonna take some more questions on virtual pledge forms because we're gonna change topics in a minute. So I want to make sure that all these questions get answered. Thank you for them. Betty reminds us that the priest still wants people to sign the donation form because it's a feeling of commitment. I would ask questions about that. I like it. I certainly like the idea, right? So people should make a firm commitment. But, you know, also if they take the time to fill out an online form and they submit it and they get an email back saying your form has been submitted, and then, you know, every 2 weeks or every month, their gift is being made, that feels like a commitment to me. And that certainly feels like a good process. The world is becoming paperless. Wet signatures are more and more difficult to get people to give these days. We've seen it certainly in the times that we've been working from home, so many of us during the pandemic. For example, I don't have a printer or a scanner at home, right? So when somebody needs a wet signature from me, I have to go into my office, use the technology there and print something off, sign it, and put a stamp on it. These are all processes that we used to do all the time and easily, but now we expect things more quickly, and it takes time to get a wet signature on something. So I would ask your priest some questions about that. What are they really going for? And what are they leaving on the table by insisting on a wet signature? If they're really committed to commitment, there are ways to create a digital signature using Adobe Acrobat products. If your church has an Adobe account, you can, you know, have somebody fill in their digital signature, and it's recognized by a legal process as a you've authenticated this. So if that's really something that is your priest's insistence, there are technological ways to do that. Marianne asks, is an automated donation receipt suitable for tax purposes, or more of an acknowledgement with a suitable receipt for tax purposes to follow? Great question. Your automated receipt should have your 501c3 number on it, your EIN or your tax ID number. It should have that number attached to it. And it should say, it's usually standard language in an automated receipt. And if it isn't, it gives you the option of adding it. It should say, no goods or services were received in exchange for this donation. This is to remind, that's the official IRS need to make something tax deductible. And so your automated receipt absolutely can serve as your receipt of tax deductibility. It is also good practice for your church to send periodic statements with the same tax ID information on it, thank you notes at the appropriate time when somebody makes their submits their pledge form, and maybe at the end of the year to send a letter out from the church saying, thank you for your pledge of $1,000. You gave $1,000, and here's your tax information again. You can't offer that too many times, and you also can't thank people enough for making gifts to your congregation. So erring on the side of more is great, but just know that your whatever comes in an auto response, if it has your 501c3 number on it, it is legitimate for tax purposes. Great question. Thank you for asking it. All right, I'm going to move on. Let's talk a little bit about the offertory. Throughout the pandemic, we have tried to find ways to make online church feel like church, and it works in a lot of cases. It leaves us wanting more in a lot of cases as well. But the offertory is a place where, especially as a church fundraiser, I get really excited. I want to see a good, well thought through offertory process. And whether that is leading to a spiritual communion or a real Eucharist, that's the wrong word, a Eucharist that happens at the altar, whether that's a spiritual communion where bread and wine aren't blessed and shared, but they are done so in the ways that our pandemic lives have given us to do, or whether you're using one of the morning or evening offices and there is still a place where a plate would be passed and gifts would come to the altar and be blessed. Please still find a way to do that work in your virtual service. And as we become hybrid, and some people choose to go back to church and some people choose to stay home, please find ways to still include an acknowledgement that our gifts come from more than just the plate that is passed and arriving at the altar, but are coming from all places through virtual donations. My good friend, Kay Sylvester from the Diocese of Los Angeles, has written a few of these offertory sentences that could be put into your virtual bulletin or used, and they emphasize just a little bit more breadth of scope in how our gifts come in. They're still wonderfully spiritual statements, and they remind us that our gifts come from many places. So in the offertory, the first thing we do is invite our gifts through the offertory sentence. We gather, we take that moment to either pass a plate or bring money to a plate if we're doing it that way, or make our gifts online. I've seen some really successful virtual liturgies that have said, we're gonna be quiet for a minute and allow you to make your online gift. Or maybe there's a music offering that happens while people are making their online gift as well. So give space for that time in that moment of gathering. And then, in whatever place, if it's at the altar through a spiritual communion or a Eucharist, or if it's at the altar through the office, morning prayer or evening prayer, take a moment to bless those gifts that have come in, either virtually by just raising them to God, or if there's a plate to lift the plate. I've seen congregations bring in the envelopes that people have sent in during the week for those that are sending checks. I've seen, all kinds of different ways that people acknowledge that gifts are still coming in, even if we're not passing a plate at the moment. And then, of course, the important part about our gifts is that they're not just received by the church, but they're broken and they're shared with the world. And so this is an important ritual, the sacred movement of the offertory. Please find ways to highlight it and give it its sacred moment within our liturgy, even when we are gathered virtually. All right, we're going to move into some best practices for virtual giving campaigns. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the online platforms that have risen to the top of our work in 2020 and 2021. So as you move into your fundraising season, or as you think about virtual fundraising in general, select the technology that you'll use. And I'm going to go through some of the technologies in a minute. Develop your best case and any collateral, virtual or printed, that you want to be sent. In a few months, TENS is going to offer a webinar on creating compelling case statements and narrative budgets. We have some great tools to help you get ready for your annual fundraising. And so we will share those with you in a webinar, and I encourage you all to sign up for it. I will send you the link to our website where you can see all of the upcoming webinars and prepare yourselves. TENS provides annual campaign resources. They are being translated as we speak, and they will be up on our site in June. This is great news, but we give you weekly meditations and liturgical resources for the Sundays of September through November, when pledge campaigns are often happening. So we want to make sure that you have access to that, as well as sample letters from your clergy, wardens and stewardship chair, some pledge cards that you can use either electronically or printed, tips for your online donation page. We have all of that, which you can download as TENS members from our website. And I will make sure, again, to give you that password in the materials that I send you. Every congregation should have the ability to collect donations and pledges online via mobile platforms or online platforms. It's no longer usual for individuals to carry cash. More and more people, when they come to church, they bring their credit and debit card. If I were to come into your church as a visitor, you would get very little from me in terms of cash because I just don't carry a lot of it. I use my debit card or my phone for almost everything. Even in healthy times, passing a plate suggests many people touching a common item. I think we're all going to be a little bit more aware as we re-enter society of how we use touch and where viruses and other things lurk. I think this is just going to be in our consciousness for a while. There's no virus. There's no physical virus with an online gift. Receipts are automatic. We just talked about that. Thank you acknowledgements, your tax letters, those are all automatic when you use an online system for raising money for your church. Most donation software gives you at least the basic information: name, address, email address, legal name, legal address, and verified email address to reach out to someone. So you can usually get back to your donor who made your gift and acknowledge them, enroll them in your system, and make sure that they are aware that you have received their gift and are grateful and gracious about it. Gifts go right into your bank. So this is fast, it's easy, it zips out of one account and into another. Sometimes there's a delay of a couple of days while things post, but in general, it's a very, very rapid process. And this really makes everybody's access a little easier. There's no reason to limit the number of platforms or methods you have for giving. This is about donor-centric fundraising. Donor-centric means that we find ways to make it easy for our members to give. For decades, we've said we accept checks, we accept envelopes, and we want you to put it in the plate. If you aren't there, you can mail it in, but it's not as nice, right? So we're a different church, we're a different world, we're a different community than we were before. And having virtual ways to give people an option for giving is essential. It's also putting the donor needs, your member needs front and center, making it as easy as possible for them. Here are a few of the platforms that worked really well in the pandemic and a lot of churches found success with. Tithely is one of TEN's very good friends. We've had a relationship with Tithely, and in doing so, we get to offer discounts to all of our TEN's members for using Tithely. So this is a public service announcement. It's also a gift that TENS is able to give all of you. They have an online giving component, an app-based giving component for your phone, text to give options as well. Autoresponders, they have those, and you can put your logo in it and create some customized language. The report that your treasurer can download gives you all the information that you need for how to stay in touch with your donors. The transaction rate with the TENS discount is 2.75% plus 30 cents per transaction. It's pretty reasonable in terms of what it costs to accept a gift online. So you get a little discount. There's no fee for the church to set up Tithely. This is great. A lot of platforms have a monthly user fee for the congregation. There's no fee. So the only money Tithely gets is through the transaction rates. Also, donors, your members, can elect to have that transaction rate covered. So rather than if I were to give $100 to the church and 2.75% of that is my transaction fee, the church would only get, they would get a smaller portion of my money, $97.25. But if I want them to have the full 100, I need to increase that amount of my donation. And so then the church gets my whole 100. This is a easy tool for donors to use. So it makes sure that the church doesn't have to cover that transaction cost from the cost of the donation. PayPal is probably one of the best solutions to implement for congregations because PayPal is widely used. It is used in the e-commerce marketplace. It's used in nonprofits. It has a really long reputation, as long as anything does on the internet, of being reliable, of not having big breaches, and of being really secure and easy. It has great name recognition, and it works. It's also your least expensive transaction cost. So we've gotten the Tithely discount down about as far as we can get it. But I want to let you know PayPal is even cheaper. 1.6% to 2.2% of your transaction rate. That is really the lowest across all vendors. It's a really great thing. And it's free for congregations to implement. PayPal is a great tool. Ministry Link. This works both in US and Canadian congregations. It has, remember that I said that the other two were free. This one has a monthly fee for the church. So it's $19 a month for the church to offer this service. And it has a fixed transaction rate of about 3%. Donors can cover the transaction cost though. CloverGive is another tool that many congregations are using. I know that the Diocese of Los Angeles has pretty good adoption of this model, this vendor. It works everywhere. It's a really good tool. Again, a monthly fee and a pretty reasonable transaction rate. It has these kiosks that you can put into your collection plate or at the back of your church. You can rent them from them. And you can install them in your congregation. I know many of us, and I too, get worried about feeling like there's an ATM in your church lobby. I don't think we want that aesthetically or theologically, but there needs to be a way for people to make a gift to your congregation if they don't have cash to give it. So if they're using checks or if they're using their phone, they're using cards or they're using their phone, you should give them away. And Clover Give has some great options for that. Vanco Faith. Vanco is a payment processor for all kinds of transactions, and they have a faith-specific department that works really well in the United States and in Canada, has a pretty reasonable transaction rate of 2.75%, but a little higher per donation fee, 45 cents. So they take 2.75% plus 45 cents for every transaction. And there is a monthly fee. It's scalable depending on the volume that you do. If you're using Facebook Live for your virtual worship, Facebook has a giving platform that is fully integrated into the system. You can have a button there. You can say, if you're watching today, here's how you can make your gift. It's been free to set up, and there are no transaction fees, 0 transaction fee right now. So this is absolutely your cheapest way to accept money. You don't have to be a Facebook user to use this. If you are sending people a link to access your Facebook Live service, and all they have to do is have a connection. They don't have to have a Facebook account. They can make a donation, and it asks all the information and passes that along to the church. It's a great tool. I don't know how long it's going to be free. They've said through the pandemic it will be free. I don't know when they will change their mind on that. Thank you for looking at all of these vendors, and I want to take any questions that you might have about them. But I'll give you a last couple pieces of information while you're thinking of any questions you might have. We are ready for our fundraising program for 2021. And as I said, it will be uploaded by the beginning of June. You'll be able to download it and begin planning your campaigns for the fall. We used the theme of every perfect gift, which comes from James 1:17. Every perfect gift and every generous act comes from God above. And this reminds us that all gifts come from God and we return all of it. We use the butterfly and the metamorphosis of the butterfly as our theme for how our gifts are transformed into work through the Spirit and through our love and through our relationship. We have a lot of information on our website. You can access all of our webinars that we've done so far on our webinars page. You can sign up for new ones, and our resource library is absolutely full of all kinds of information that you might want or need to go into our fundraising season and think about how you might engage your members and donors. We have a few minutes left for any questions that you might have about anything we've covered. Donation forms, social media campaigns, the vendors or the online giving portals that we've talked about. Are there any questions that you have before we return you to your Saturday? As I've said, we will, this is being recorded, so we will send you the recording of this. We'll also send you the slides that we've used in English and in Spanish so that you can access this, share it with your stewardship committee, your vestries, however you want. St. Paul's Episcopal Church asks, will your resources have easily editable templates in Word? Thank you for asking that. Yes, so we provide you, all of our resources come in PDF, so that if you don't want to edit it or alter it in any way, you can just print it off, it'll work. But we also give it to you in Word so that you can download it, and if you want to manipulate it to put it into your bulletin format, change it around, you have access to doing that. So we give it to you both in both versions so that you can do what you want with it. It makes it a little easier on everyone. The same is true of the pledge cards. We've given you a template which you can print off and run. We've also used, you can also do it in Word so that you can put your own congregation's name on it or however you want to do it. Great question. Thank you. Any other questions that I can answer about anything we've talked about in virtual giving today? I appreciate your questions because they bring richness and depth to these webinars, and I really appreciate your time and attention. Well, thank you. I'm getting thanks and acknowledgements that this is a good webinar, and I appreciate that. Thank you. I accept your gratitude and give it back to you. Thank you. Fundraising for the church is hard and beautiful work. I want to acknowledge that. It's not easy to ask for money. It's not easy to talk about money in faith, yet we do it, and we're asking you to do it. And so I want to acknowledge very deeply the work you're doing. It's good work, it's God's work, it's hard work, and thank you for engaging in it. I really, really appreciate what you do. We have lots more webinars this year. I'm going to send you out a link later so that you can sign up for them, tell your friends and neighbors about them. I will also send you out a very brief survey. It's just 5 questions. And if you fill that out, it'll help us tailor content that you might be looking for, even create new webinars that we haven't dreamed of yet. So all that will help us help you. Friends, I really appreciate your time. Thank you for being with us today. And I return you to your Saturdays. Go forth and enjoy a beautiful day. Thank you again for all the work you do. Signing off from San Francisco.